Hi, I am at jury duty today, so I recorded this. Wouldn't call it a lecture, but the kind of explanation about political cartoons. And you're going to do some practice later on with them. And I also shared with you an assignment that will be due later on this week. The due date is written up on the board. So let's take a look at some things that are in political cartoons, because I want you to be a little bit more familiar with political cartoons. And really what we should have is three things in a political cartoon. It should be about some kind of current topic, some kind of issue that the United States is facing, maybe same-sex marriage, maybe gun control versus gun rights, something like that, or an election, or a piece of legislation that maybe is being considered or looked at, or whatever. But it should be about something current, not something that was relevant 4 years ago, but something that's relevant today. Political cartoons use lots of symbolism in them. That's kind of what they are. They use symbolism to get their opinion across. And that's the other thing, is that a political cartoon should express an opinion or a commentary about a particular issue. Whatever the author has chosen as their topic, the author should be getting their opinion across. When you look at a political cartoon, you should be able to determine what is the author's opinion about this. And that's kind of important. It's kind of like if I would say to you, give me a paragraph on your opinion of the United States getting involved in Syria. Or I said, draw a political cartoon that depicts your opinion about the United States getting involved in Syria. You know, either way, I should be able to get what is your opinion about it. There's a number of understood symbols that are often used in political cartoons. One is for the Republican Party, we oftentimes see an elephant that represents the Republicans. Okay, or sometimes the letters GOP, which stands for Grand Old Party. So anytime that you see an elephant, any version of an elephant in a political cartoon, it is almost certainly talking about the Republican Party. They're referring to them. So here's an example. Okay, here is an elephant sitting in the back seat of a car. GOP is on his hat, so we know that the author means for this to be the Republicans. Here's an example of symbolism. Obviously, in all cartoons, you see symbolism. This car is the economy. Oftentimes, you will see something labeled because it's not always well recognizable images. The elephant is a well-recognized image of the Republican Party, but a car is not of the economy. So when the author is using the car to represent the economy, the author had to label this. Oftentimes the author will not label everything. This represents President Obama. It looks close enough to President Obama that most people will recognize that. In this, or the Democratic Party is represented by a donkey. So any version of a donkey in a political cartoon is referring to the Democratic Party. Okay, so here's an example of a donkey in a political cartoon. The author is getting an opinion across, but anytime we see that donkey, we know that we're talking about the Democratic Party. Here's a little bit older cartoon. This is when the Democrats had a majority in the Senate. However, it uses both the Democrats and the Republicans, both of those symbols that I just recently talked about. So I thought it was a good example. And the elephant also has GOP on his pin that he's wearing. Okay, and then filibusters, which we've talked about before. So this is something that is using different symbols about, at the time, a current event. Now, this is no longer current. The Democrats no longer control the House, the Senate, but they were talking about some Senate changes that were made when the Democrats were in charge on the filibuster. They limited the filibusters some. Those were in 2013. But just an example of both the Democrats and Republicans being represented in the cartoon. Whenever you see Uncle Sam, that is a representation of the United States. So any version of Uncle Sam, and you see them quite often in political cartoons. So an example is here. This is an older cartoon, but again, there is Uncle Sam depicted in a cartoon, representing the United States as a whole. Here's another example. This is a more recent political cartoon. This is showing Uncle Sam here also. Okay, this is showing the Republicans, but you notice the tusks of the Republicans are House and Senate. So this is the Republicans in Congress. This is President Obama. Looks close enough to President Obama that that President Obama did not have to be labeled. Uncle Sam did not have to be labeled. The Republicans did not have to be labeled. These are recognizable images. Sometimes political cartoons will be holiday related, or at least use a holiday as a backdrop. This is actually fairly common right around holiday time. So we just had Halloween. There was a number of political cartoons last week that was using Halloween as a backdrop. We get closer to Thanksgiving, you'll see some using Thanksgiving. And when Christmas rolls around, you'll see them there too. So just some examples. Most of these are older cartoons, but again, this was around the Christmas time. Symbolism here, we got the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay, we have the gifts, I guess, are debt. Again, there's symbolism being used, our national debt. This was around Valentine's Day a couple years ago. This is not a new one either, but again, here's symbolism. Again, most of us recognize the the symbols being used in this cartoon. Here's another one around the 4th of July. So if you're looking at cartoons and it's around a holiday time, it's not uncommon for there to be some holiday backdrop as the cartoon, or I guess some symbolism used there too that's recognizable. Sometimes cartoons use popular culture. If you use popular culture, if a cartoon uses popular culture, it's important that people recognize it. So it's got to be something that's not obscure, that's something that most people would recognize. This is an older cartoon, but I thought it did a nice job of showing that. Here is American Idol. Most of us are familiar with the show American Idol. It's been on TV for a long time, and we understand how it works with judges and so on. The judges on the show. In this case, they used the Republicans here. Notice again GOP on this Republicans. And again, this is a little older because some of these people are no longer on American Idol. But we recognize the symbol. We recognize the show, and that's what's important in a political cartoon, or one of the things that's important in a political cartoon. Sometimes they use other well-understood symbols. Here is an example of a cartoon using the cracked Liberty Bell. Here it's more than just cracked, but an example of symbolism being used of something that we recognize. Here's a pretty good political cartoon because it's using symbolism that we recognize. Right here, most of us have seen a gas gauge. I dare to say all of us have, and we understand what it means to be empty. In this case, the author is saying GOP think tank. So GOP represents the Republican Party. And the author is saying that the Republicans are out of ideas. Now, this is an opinion. You don't have to agree with the opinion, but the author does a nice job of getting an opinion across. And that's what a political cartoon should do. It should get an opinion across. I think this one is a very simple one, but it also gets the author's opinion across very nicely. It's a pretty good example of a political cartoon. Sometimes we'll see those cartoons that I refer to as "Is there a difference?" And here's an example of one where we have two pictures that are basically identical. What's the difference between this picture and this picture? Well, the only thing different is the year. Okay, so the author is basically saying that we had angry voters in 2008. The only thing that's changed in the next election is the year. We still, voters are still angry with what's going on in government or in society as a whole. Okay, those are just all examples. They don't always use the Democrats or Republicans, but they're very, very common. So there's a number of things you may see in a cartoon. Now I'm going to give you some cartoons to work on. This is going to be very similar to the assignment that I share with you. But these cartoons, this is just practice in class. I want you to sit down with somebody, right? Actually, just use the person sitting right next to you and answer some questions on a cartoon. So the questions I want you to answer are, I want you to describe the events or issues depicted in this cartoon. I want you to answer number 2, what is the author's commentary about this event? What is the author trying to say? But 3 is very important. What evidence is there to support it? So you need to list out all your evidence and explain that out. And lastly, based on the evidence that you have, would you conclude that this is favoring the Democrats or the Republicans? Sometimes it doesn't. Not all the examples do. Okay, so, but if we go back, what is the author's commentary? Remember, we looked at this one. What is the author's commentary? Well, the author's commentary is the Republicans are out of ideas. What evidence do I have to show that? Well, this is a gas gauge, and the gas gauge is on empty. The gas gauge is representing the Republican Party's ideas. How do I know it's the Republican Party? Because it says GOP here. Okay, so I would need to explain all of that out for this part here, all the evidence that you have. Would I say that that past cartoon is biased one way or the other, or promoting one side or the other? I would say yes, it is. It's more of a Democratic view here, not necessarily a Republican view. Okay, so I want you to do the same thing with this one. But I also have like 5 other examples. So I'll probably give the PowerPoint to the teacher, whoever's subbing for me today. But if the teacher would rather, my sub would rather, she can hit pause. He or she can hit pause here. And then I'll play, here's the next one. And it can give you time to work on this one. So pause it here, and then here is the next one. Again, pause it here, give students a chance to work on it. And then another one. And again, hit pause here, let students have a chance to work on it. And then one last one here. Again, pause it, let students work on it, or pull up the PowerPoint that is on my desktop on my computer. And then have students work on it, and then work on the next one, work on the next one, and so on. And then when done, you can go over the answers with them if there is time at the end of the class period. All right, so those are the ones. Here's the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and fifth one. All right, have a good day. This is very much related to the assignment that has been shared with you.